Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Harry, and Dan. Thank you guys so much for joining us after Liverpool have come back from behind twice to steal points away from home at the Emirates to Arsenal. A lot of meltdowns we've seen on social media and in group chats over how Liverpool performed today. And while it wasn't the greatest performance in the first half, it was a completely different animal in the second half. A lot of people don't seem to realise that a game of football doesn't end after 45 minutes, but maybe they'll learn soon enough. But we'll get into everything that kind of went on during the game and maybe some man of the match performances for ourselves and how everybody else will go about it as well and how we sort of thought the game went. Harry, I'll throw it over to yourself first with regards to the first half. We'll start on the first half because it really, as hilariously Michael Owen isms it is a game of two halves, as obvious as that may seem. But it really was. We were night and day differences in first and second half. The first half, it just seemed like we were trying to lob balls over the top, seeing to test their fullbacks, and it really wasn't working. Diaz wasn't getting anything against Thomas Partey. Salah wasn't really getting much headway against Yuri and Timber until the second half. And then Diaz had to come back and help defensively along with Darwin Núñez. To help out the fullbacks. Núñez helped out on the right-hand side and Diaz helped out on Andy Robertson's side, someone who really didn't look great and didn't shower himself in graces in this game. But, Harry, give me your thoughts on the first half before we get into the second half.
Yeah, honestly, my mind is blank for the first half, which I think says everything. You can't really remember any play we had. It was all defending. Obviously, we scored the goal, and it was a really well-worked goal. Actually, I love that little corner routine. But apart from that, it was a scrappy midfield battle. Not really. I think we had about two shots, if that. I don't even know. But it was hard to watch. But it meant that the second half couldn't be any worse, and they went and delivered in the end. But yeah, not the great. Probably one of the worst halves we've had this season. I think it's fair to say. I don't really remember anything from it. I don't remember any good bits of play personally. But yeah,
it was similar to me. I couldn't really see many good bits in the first half, to be perfectly honest with you. It was just one of them where it was, Dan, we were really trying to throw the ball over the top, bypass the midfield realistically, and it really wasn't playing to any of our strengths. It seemed that Slot kind of stuck to what worked with Chelsea, but it really wasn't working against Arsenal, and Arteta really won the tactical battle, at least in the first half, because I don't think Arsenal were that great. They got a goal through a defensive mistake, you can call it, and a goal through a set piece. We kind of fell asleep on the set piece, I'll grant them that, but I think it was just more, we got hit with two haymakers, and that was realistically it. We were kind of reeling and just struggled and just needed to get to the second half before conceding a second, because we knew we were going to get something in the second half.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's got to be taken into context for obviously everyone who's watching at home. And the media did the very, very best to make it out as if Arsenal were going to be underdogs in this game. And for some reason, they had an injury crisis of missing Odegaard and Saliba. Well, we'll raise you, Alisson, Jota, Harvey Elliott, all first starting team players who we didn't have available for us. And I didn't expect at any point for us to walk into this game thinking we should win this one. Like, this is a must win. This is a must win game. For anything, this is a much worse result for Arsenal. That's 2 games in a row now where there's no win. On this game, they were ahead for both occasions and didn't keep the lead. It's not a great result for them. Coupled with the fact that they've had a number of injuries mid-game. Jurrien Timber, Arteta, it's your fault. You're playing a player who's not ready to come back into the game and he's injured again. That's on him for him to go and learn about it. But I just felt in that first half it was difficult because we, as you said, we were trying to play this ball out over to Luis Diaz to attack Thomas Partey and Ben White over on that left-hand side and try and hit what would be their weaker side. And it just didn't work at all. I felt that was probably coupled with Andy Robertson having a poor game. It was really poor from him, but he's up against Bukayo Saka. It's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I've said before, I feel like Andy Robertson is going to be phased out. I do feel like he's a player who we need to replace. I've said that on streams. I've said myself. So we missed Szoboszlai. We come into that second half, things changed, and even just looking at SofaScore and looking at the map of the 2 games, we started quite well. They did well, scored a goal. We then got right back into it because they went 11 men behind the ball practically, which was a bit strange for the first half. And then from that point in, Arsenal just got a grip of the game. And as you say, they scored pretty much that last kick of the second half, and from what they are very good at, being, corners and free kicks and set pieces. So it was very disappointing, but I was very impressed how the fact that Slot has gone out again and he's fixed what he's seen as being a problem.
Yeah, that's essentially it. As we said, it was a game of two halves. There was problems in the first half. They were addressed and fixed in the second half. And I think the substitutions that were made were brilliant substitutions. Obviously, McAllister had to come off because of the booking. It was and just the way that game was going. Anthony Taylor, the absolute bald hero that he is, was just handing out cards left and right for silly stuff. At one point, one of our lads thought that Darwin Núñez had 2 yellows, but in actuality, it was Slot that got one of them, who now misses the midweek game against Brighton. So he'll be up in the stands for that, away to Brighton for that, I'm nearly sure. Jim Hughes, possibly, but I don't think that's a bad thing. We are less intensive under Slot, but it's controlled intensity is possibly the best way to describe it. Just looking at a couple of the comments here before we jump into the second half. Do we have a Robbo problem? I think yes, but no. Horses for courses. He can play against certain teams, and I think he just doesn't have the legs to play against other teams. When you're playing against somebody like a Bukayo Saka, I honestly think Joe Gomez would have been the better starting option at that left back position today. But I knew it wasn't going to happen. Just having a quick look here. Jay saying that he take the point away. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Derek, take the point away considering how bad we played. Woeful in possession, dreadful passing, constantly giving the ball away, too slow and lethargic on the ball. I'd agree with you for the first half, Derek. Second half, I thought it was a completely different animal. George asking, is it time to look for a new left back or a new left wing back? See, the problem with it is, and this will be for any team, we play with a traditional back four, which is 2 centre backs and 2 full backs. We're looking at other teams that are now all playing with basically 3 to 4 centre backs who are makeshift full backs as well at the same time. Your Arsenals, your Cities, even United have been trying it. Like, Calafiore isn't a left back. He's a left-sided centre back. Ben White was so terrible as a centre back, they moved him to right back. Thomas Partey has played right back for a number of times for them. Urian Timber was a centre back for God knows how long before he got his injury last season, was all out, and now is playing at a left back or a right back. It's all very speculative and it depends completely on your system. Our system, thankfully, doesn't necessarily need those 4 centre backs or 3 centre backs in it. Personally, I think. I don't think we have a left back or a left wing back problem. I think we have an age problem. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it realistically.
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, we said from the start, though, haven't we? It said I've respected Arne Slot with the fact that any good manager doesn't walk into any job and shouldn't do and make his mind up on who's good enough and who isn't good enough before he gives them a chance to prove it. And that's what he's doing. What he's done is he's allowing players to fall on their own swords. If they're good enough, Ryan Gravenberch, you take your chance, and guess what? No longer do we need to buy a 6 anymore because we've got an incredible footballer right there. That's what happens. However, what's happening now is we're going to see that Robbo can't be played week in, week out. We know that. Like you just said, Stephen, it's an age problem. He can't play 2-3 games a week. He just can't do it anymore. It's not fair to ask him to do that, probably based on his body. Kostas Tsimikas has come in and has played a mixed bag. Some games very well, some not so well. He's started a bit shaky, but he's a second choice left back. He's quite happy to be a second choice left back. They're quite rare, and he's a captain of Greece and will take it. But we are going to replace Andy Robertson because I think it's becoming evident that he's not going to be able to make it against the very biggest. He'll be able to do very well probably against the bottom 12, but when we start playing about the teams who want to go into Europe, it might just become a little bit too much for him.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one of the quotes that came out here from Slot after the game, and boy, do I love it. James Pearce is just after tweeting it. Slot on, Arsenal always fell down when they had the ball possession. I said it to Ebu, this is a fucking joke, but the 4th official thought I was talking to him. I got a yellow for that. That's brilliant. I love Slot. That's my gaffer right there. Absolutely love that. And
it's only taken 9 games for him to start getting yellows.
Yeah, and slowly but surely the Premier League referees have started to thaw the Iceman that is Arne Slot out. Harry, how did you see the change in the second half, and what did you see change for us in the second half that allowed us to sort of maybe take better control of the game as it went forward?
I think the main change we made was Szoboszlai on for McAllister. I think Jones deserved to start today, whether he was supposed to be in the sort of R10 role. I know it's not an out-and-out number 10, but that's not where he played against Chelsea. That's not where he performed really well. He's better off on the left side of midfield, sort of providing an option for Diaz and Robertson, and then, you know, burst into the box when, you know, maybe Salah or Trent puts across the back post. He didn't look in the game at all. He looked better once he got to drop back when Szoboszlai came on. So I'd say that was the main sort of control aspect. I think Tsimikas looked good off the bench as well. He brought some energy. Robertson just, I don't know what's up with him at the moment, but I can't see him. He won't start midweek now. And who else came on? I don't even remember. Endo came on.
Endo and Gakpo came on.
Gakpo, yes. Yeah, Gakpo was really good as well, actually, I thought.
Yeah.
He didn't quite
Gakpo had an awful lot more success on that left-hand side, which then allowed creation and pinned them back a little bit more. Now, it could also be done to the effect that they were a little bit more tired, and obviously Gakpo coming on with fresh legs, he could pin them back a little bit more, but you could see then Jones, Tsimikas and Gakpo on that side sort of forming a triangle, which led to an awful lot of crosses being played in that could have all been very, very deadly if we were able to finish any of them. It's one of them games that you're just going to be happy to take points away from, Dan, as we mentioned. And what did you see in the second half that changed? Obviously, Harry mentioned the substitutions, and I mentioned the substitutions as well. What did you see? Because what I saw as well as that was us changing our attack and going more through the middle than the outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's Arne Slot doing what he's proven he's been able to do on a number of occasions, that when he's seen something going wrong, he makes the right changes, whether that's personnel or whether that's just that tactical tweak. And I noticed the same, that we went to go again through the middle. We tried to start playing into Jones, into Gravenberch a little bit more and playing our style of football. And we have to give respect to who we're playing against here. And I know we've said, oh, it's a bad performance. Yeah, it wasn't the best, but it's away from home, having played midweek in the Champions League in Germany against a team who only played at home a day earlier against Shakhtar Donetsk. There's some nuance surrounding the fact that we weren't exactly in the best prepared situation to play in this game. I was very happy with the fact that we've come from behind, you know, not once but twice in a game to get ourselves back into what is a really good result. And I don't think it should be played down that a draw at the Emirates this early on in the season is a bad result. It's a good result. It's a much worse result for Arsenal based on the fact that they're still miles points wise off Man City and we're only a point behind them. So I'll take it all day long. Szoboszlai, again, he's the 11th most liked player in the Liverpool team because someone's got to be. And that's how it's always going to be. It was Jordan Henderson. It's been Gini Wijnaldum. The list goes on and on and on. This season, it's Szoboszlai. But we didn't half miss him when he wasn't on the pitch. And when he came in, there was a big change, that we had that engine and that dynamism that we needed. And McAllister obviously is a different style of player. I was really happy, to be honest. I'd have shook your hand at a draw at the start of the game, but I'm more happy with the way that we got a draw in the circumstances and the way that we did it. I thought it was a really good result for Liverpool. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Yeah, as am I, to be honest with you. As we said, like, that was probably one of our toughest away games of the season, and like, people will look at that as, oh, we dropped points. No, we didn't. We were losing twice.
Nonsense.
That's essentially how it is. We were losing twice and we came back.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Mick here mentioning point is a good result away at Arsenal, but I do feel it was a missed opportunity with Saliba suspended and Gabriel coming off after 60 minutes. More intensity, we win that. Yeah, Mick, but at the same time, when they park all three team buses in front of the goal in the second half after going 2-1 up, and they did the same after going 1-0 up, it's very hard for us to get through that even if they're playing a back six then at that point, and that's very hard. Like you seen Rice and Marino were both dropping into the back line, which is the problem there. And that's fine. If Arsenal want to play that way, that's fine. But it's these kind of games where they could have gone on and gotten a third and killed the game 3-1, similarly to last season. These are the kind of games that Arteta is going to lose his job over. And I will say that now, Arteta will be fired in the next 24 months if he wins nothing, because this will be his 5th season without any silverware following winning an FA Cup with Unai Emery's team. But we're going to move on because we'll finish this up fairly quickly, because we could talk for hours on this, but 'tis late in the evening and I have a Chinese to be ordering. So Harry, I'll come to you on who was your man of the match and who was your worst performer of the match. And I just want to see about who you go for with both of them and why, obviously.
I think man of the match, I think I've seen it already everywhere. I think everyone agrees that Konate was easily our best player. He was the only one I watched for the whole game and thought, I'm not disappointed with you. Especially the first half. The first half, no one excited me, but he was solid. I mean, Van Dijk as well, but you know, he got the goal. You can't really blame him for his foot being back, playing Marino on side. I don't think anyone's gonna have a go about that. But I think Konate was basically flawless for the whole game. In terms of who was worst or most disappointing, I think I didn't see much of McAllister at all. He really didn't get into it. I don't think it was his game, whether he was tired or it just didn't suit him, the tempo of the match. I don't know what it was, but he got a yellow card. He came off, and I'd say he was poor. I think as well, Robertson, I don't know how I've just forgotten about him. Robertson, beaten for the first goal, didn't really show anything. No play going forward like he usually does. No connection with Diaz.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably Robertson, but I think McAllister struggled as well, big time.
Yeah, I think McAllister really, the struggles came from the yellow card, and he obviously couldn't be as aggressive as what he would have wanted to have been, which is an issue, realistically. What does the panel think of Jones today? I think Jones had the problem that Jones always has. He has one good game, and then he's a bad game. And I don't think he was all that impressive in this game. And that's the problem that we have with him. And I don't think he's a starter in this team. As much as some people would like him to be a starter, he did deserve to start, as Harry mentioned. Obviously, off the back of a great performance against Chelsea. But the problem that Curtis Jones has always had is good for a game or two and then isn't. And that is why he won't break through to the first team. And genuinely, it's my thoughts on it. He's a great squad option, but the only reason he's still here is because he's Scouse. And the reason behind that is because it's very hard to find a player that will happily take bench minutes for their boyhood club and have zero complaints about it, which is an invaluable asset to have. And that's what Jones is. He's depth, he's quality depth, but he's not somebody you're going to be starting 38 games of a Premier League season, in my own personal opinion. I actually do think if Dom starts, it's a different result because we'd be pressing them a different way. Personally, I think it was more Jones deserved the start based on performances, and I'd rather my manager provide starts to players who are performing, and it's also a kick in the ass for Dom as well to show you're not bulletproof here. If you don't start producing other than in the press, you're getting dropped. Like it is very much that simple, and that has benefits to us from both sides because it keeps our substitutions sharp. It shows that people that will play well get to play and people that are sub-performance will not play. But Dan, I'll throw it over to you for your man of the match and who you'd have as the dud of the match as well, I suppose we'll call them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue, isn't it? I mean, plays performances-wise, no one really stood out as being incredible. I think Konate showing, the level that we all want him to be, and it's really nice to see because he's had one or two little moments of the old Konate, but he's really growing into the player we all wanted him to be and what he can be. So for me, I think our best player on the day was Konate. I thought he made some really good tackles, covered for Trent really well. Did everything you would have wanted. Didn't really put a foot wrong all game. So I was really happy with the way he played. Yeah, I mean, It's Robertson. I mean, but then it's like it's difficult because I've given the reasons as to why I believe that Robertson's kind of being given a bit of an unfair sort of a bit of a disadvantage. I don't believe he's the right player for these games, but as we've said, we've got Tsimikas played midweek. Robertson was rested, so you play Robertson. Robertson's coming to play. He's up against Bukayo Saka, one of the best right wingers in the league. Blah blah blah. You know, there's those elements. I felt like afterwards, after the goal, I think he was okay, not terrible, didn't cause anything. But in that first half, he was really run ragged. To be totally honest, it was a poor one. I'm good, Paul. Yeah, thanks very much, mate. I'm really good, thank you. So yeah, it's got to be Robertson as being the worst one. I agree with McAllister, but I felt that when you look at the size of Arsenal, everyone's over 6 foot tall. They're all big, massive monsters, aren't they? And Alexis McAllister is in the Shaw King Club with me, and Curtis Jones isn't exactly one of the tallest, biggest lads in the game. I've really felt we missed Szoboszlai. I think it was right to give Jones a start because he deserved it, but at the same time, being is you do need your horses for courses, and I think that Szoboszlai is that player when you're up against teams who have got that physicality. You want someone who can match it. So yeah, I think McAllister again and Robertson were probably kind of not played to their greatest of advantages, but you know they've got to rise up to the situation that's in front of them, and they didn't quite. However, good result in the end. So you know I'll take it, and we walk away, and we're still unbeaten away from home.
Yeah, unbeaten in the last 9 and unbeaten in the last 5 now away from home all season. So again, if you go unbeaten away from home against the top 6, you can't really ask for much more on that. Whether it's wins or draws, you're not allowing them to win in their own house. If you win against the big 6 at home and draw or win against them away and remain undefeated against them, that's miles better than what we done last season. Myself, I would have the man of the match is actually Virgil van Dijk. That would have been my man of the match, purely because the man suffers from his own success, which is hilarious to say because he looked pedestrian today. However, he delivered a defensive masterclass for anybody that watched the game because and to be honest, a second to that nobody seems to have mentioned either is Ryan Gravenberch, because Ryan Gravenberch had another all-timer, albeit it didn't look like it with 2 goals conceded, and that goes against him as a defensive midfielder. But both Virgil van Dijk and Ryan Gravenberch, both could have been man of the match for me. Virgil van Dijk had a stellar game. I'm just going to pull up some of the numbers here, which was nuts. Obviously, he had his goal off the assist from Diaz. He had 11 passes into the final third. He was nearly 50% accurate in all of his long balls, 4 for 9. 6 clearances, 1 interception, 9 defensive actions, 1 recovery, won 67% of his duels on the ground, and won 63% of his duels in the air. To your point, Dan, of how they're big, tall guys and strong in the air, that was crucial for us because they were sending crosses in left, right, and centre, and any centre back worth his salt that isn't as good in the air as both Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate, we would have been losing that game 4 or 5-1 at that point. Similarly, Ryan Gravenberch in the middle of the field very much played sometimes as a lone 6, very much played as part of a double pivot with either McAllister or Jones dropping back into them. Thought he was fantastic on the defensive side of it. Didn't necessarily progress with his carries, unfortunately, but he had an interception, he had 2 recoveries, 6 defensive actions. He won 7 duels and lost 3. Like, realistically, what more do you want from your CDM than winning 70% of their duels in a midfield that you see the others getting physically outclassed in before Szoboszlai obviously came on? I would have easily had him as a man of the match as well.
And against the quality of the players that he's up against as well, like these aren't just some lads, you know what I mean? They're a title challenging team. They were the second best team in the Premier League last season. Yeah. And to go to their gaff, and as you rightfully said, not to lose is the aim of the game. Man City have won titles back, you know, literally back to back to back to back on not losing at the top 6 away from home. They go out there and win the games they should go and win. They go to Southampton and win 1-0. They go up, you know, things that Liverpool failed to do in the past. And ultimately, this is what Slot's done. If we don't lose to City at the Etihad and don't lose to Arsenal at the Emirates, I'm taking that all day long. Absolutely.
But as I said, like Arsenal dropped points here. Liverpool gained points, Arsenal dropped points. And I think that's what a lot of people are failing to understand is because Arsenal were ahead twice and gave up those leads twice. You can say what you want about injuries. You can say what you want about everything else. Arsenal would have played that game the exact same way, regardless of who was on that pitch. They scored their goal, parked 11 behind the ball. Then they got the set. Then we equalized, and then they opened up again, got their second one from a set piece. They weren't the most impressive. They just were intense, and that was it. And really, I think we were just a little bit tired as well at the same time. And as Derek mentions here, we expect it from Gravenberch now, so that's why nobody noticed it. Very similar to Van Dijk. He's suffering from his own strengths and success. And as Paul mentions here, at the start of the season, we would have taken our position, no issues. Absolutely. And I don't disagree with that at all. Harry, just to finish us up for today, any final thoughts on it? How do you see us maybe going into the game against Brighton now midweek? Do you see many changes or just a couple of tweaks?
I see quite a few changes. I think there's players that deserve some minutes out there. I think they're going to be knackered now, those players, after the midweek and the Arsenal game, two sort of quite high intensity games. So yeah, I can see rests and a lot of changes. I just want to add, a lot of people, I think their standards have been raised for games this season just from the start we've had. If you told me before we kicked off the season that we'd get a draw away at Arsenal, I'd be buzzing because, I'd be content. When Arne Slot came in, we said top four, go and get top four, maybe win a cup, good Champions League run. Perfect. That's a great first season, and you can build on it, sort of get your own players in. So people getting frustrated and annoyed at a 2-2 draw at the Emirates is kind of crazy to me, to be honest with you.
And do you know what it is as well, Harry, is if you told any of us at the start of the season, Liverpool, after 9 games, would have lost once, been undefeated in their last 9 in all competitions, and undefeated away from home, while having the best defensive record in the league, and their closest rivals either side of them, Arsenal have conceded double the amount of goals that we have, and City are almost the same. We've only conceded 5 goals in the Premier League this season. City have conceded 9, Arsenal have conceded 10. Behind them, Aston Villa and Chelsea have both conceded 11. Brighton have conceded 12. Forest are the closest to us, who are having a stellar season by all standards. Realistically, they could get Europe this season without a doubt. Nottingham Forest are the closest to us with 7. Every other team in the league, other than City, us, City and Nottingham Forest, are in the single digits for goals conceded away from home. And even if we add in all competitions, we're still in the single digits in goals conceded away from home, which is a scary prospect to see. Because myself and Dan said it last season before you joined us, Harry, that we scored enough goals to win the league. We just conceded too many that caused us problems. And if we conceded, I said it was 0.5 goals less per 90. So essentially in the Premier League, conceding 10 less goals than we actually did. So in 10 of the games, not conceding first and just being more sound defensively, we win the league. That's how small the margin was. And we're doing it this season. At the moment, we have conceded 5 goals in the Premier League through nearly 10 games. That is on par with Chelsea's record-breaking season. And I think that's also flying under the radar as well. Chelsea had 14, 15 goals conceded in the one season?
I mean, if we extrapolate it and if it carries on at that rate, we're going to concede 18 goals this season. I mean, that's how good defensively we have been. That's how defensively Liverpool have been. I said it from the start, and I know that Stephen will have me on one of his starred WhatsApp messages of me saying, I said from the start, I expect us to challenge. That's why I said from the very, very start, because this team is good enough. This team got 86 points. This team only needs to defend better. Attacking wise, we got that nailed down. That's fine. Like, we don't need to fix anything about attack. All we need to do is make sure that we don't sort of do what we did today against Arsenal, which was concede early. But the difference is it's okay when it happens against high-quality teams, because that's what high-quality teams can do to you. Yeah. It's when you then concede within the first 10 minutes. Exactly. When you're going up against Crystal Palace and you're giving Eze literally a free shot in the centre, in the box, and we lose the game 1-0. We come up against Luton, for God's sakes, and have a breakaway. All the stuff that so far Arne Slot's walked into the door and said, well, if you just stop doing that, the rest of it's okay. I couldn't be happier. But if anyone is disappointed or pull the face, I'll need you to provide me some evidence of you saying you expected us to challenge for the title, because
That's
that
what we're doing.
is where you're at. If you said top 4, be happy. Be happy with it, because that's a top 4 performance. That's not going for the title. That's a top 4 performance. He's overgone ahead of what I thought he would do. Jesus, if he said you'll lose one game, go to Man United, beat them 3-0, go to the Emirates, get a 2-2 draw against them, be top of the table in the Champions League, I'd be like, he's the second coming, isn't he? He's the second coming of Paisley as it stands right now.
Yeah, and I long may it continue. Like as I said, like so, Jamie, he finished second last season in the Eredivisie.
Yeah,
and
second.
the way that so I'm not sure if it was AZ Alkmaar or when he came to Feyenoord, but it was one of them two teams that had conceded about 40 goals in the season previous. He comes in and they conceded 14 the following season, and he nearly wins the league with them.
AZ Alkmaar, he was top of the table bar in goal difference against Ajax in 2020 when they called off the season.
When they called off the season and nobody won it. He was only for goal difference. Ajax were ahead of him that season, which was nuts.
Which is wild with who they are.
Yeah, considering their budget is the same as our youth team, if even. Which is exactly why I had all the high hopes for him when I went in and reviewed all of his stuff and everything like that. But we're going to finish it there, guys. We have taken points away from home at Arsenal, continue our undefeated run in the last 9 games, and we are also still undefeated away from home too. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks so much, JMUs, for joining us. And make sure, guys, to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We'll be back again tomorrow from 7:30 p.m. We're going back to 7:30s again now next week. Oh, I will, JMUs. I can't wait to watch the 49ers absolutely finger the Cowboys. It's going to be great. Dan, you haven't a clue what I'm talking about, but I'll educate you. It'll be okay.
Sounds like it's
American egg ball. American egg ball. That's all you need to know. But thank you guys so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the weekend. It's bank holiday here in Ireland, so I am again off work tomorrow. So I'm going to get myself Chinese and have a very late night. It's going to be great. Thanks so much for joining us. For myself, Harry, Dan, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.